Hello, good people. Welcome back to the Heart of the Hood, Coburg Uniting Church, where we say to you, do not be conformed, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind and spirit. June is the season of Spirit. We celebrate the season of Pentecost and World Environment Day, and later in June, Refugee Sunday. Spirit is an invisible force made visible in all of life that gives us the courage to be, even in threats of non-being such as racial discrimination and violence against our person. The artist leads the way, showing us what life can yet become in all of its glory and radiance and colour. Today I welcome a good friend of mine, Graham Willoughby. Welcome, Graham.
Thank you.
Graham is going to be talking to us about some marvellous things. By way of introduction, Graham is a member of Coburg Uniting Church, a deeply spiritual man, and a distinguished artist. In fact, he is a leading Australian watercolour artist. His artwork has featured in international exhibitions for years, and he's produced artist books and watercolour sculpture. So, Graham, it's so good to be able to talk to you today about season of the Spirit, if you like, the courage and power to be in the threat of non-being. So we'll come to the first question. Are you a gay artist or an artist who just happens to be gay?
That's a tricky one, Ron, because the term gay was first worked out in America, and so it's got a lot of connotations of ways of life in America. Now, I've visited America, and my art has been influenced quite a bit by American abstract expressionism, but I am Australian, and it took me quite a while to work out that American idea of gayness didn't fit me at all. So I consider myself a queer artist, given that queerness to me is a mental state. It's not tied in with sexuality. A lot of people debate this, but for me, queerness is a transgressive way of thinking.
Could you explain that word, Graham, transgressive?
Thinking outside the box, taking different images and placing them together to make a completely different sort of way of seeing the world, way of thinking. So, for me, in my art, it's bringing images and symbols together to explain my way of thinking, which, well, it's my natural way of thinking, so it's quite normal for me, but from reactions I've had during my lifetimes, I'm aware that there is an alternative view to what other artists are doing and how they express it.
Can I ask you there, Graham, the word transgressive almost reminds me of the word transgression, which is loaded with so many negative connotations by institutions, but it sounds like you cross boundaries and somehow integrate or synthesize ideas that might be disparate, considered disparate by some.
Yeah. And so the gayness comes into the way, I think, because that's, you know, my being. And the images I use are quite often men, well, most of them have men in them. And it's my way of exploring what it is to be a man. It doesn't have to be a gay man or a heterosexual or transgender. It's just a man. And I infill images into him to explain me to me, basically. And once it gets out into the public, other people put their interpretations on it. And I'm quite happy with that.
Mm.
And so, in answer to the question, I'm a human being who happens to be a man.
Beautiful. Can I ask you a question about the way you do that? Specifically about the significance of bringing images into the framework of the outline of a man. What's the significance of that? What is that? What are you trying to say in doing that?
At one stage, I thought I was being very clever and telling men about the possibility of being a spiritual person. But that, I worked out that that was pretty arrogant on my behalf. And then a bit later on I thought, well, I'm just explaining myself and my spirituality within the confines of the shape of a man. But now I don't know where the images come from. I've got a pile of images that I go through, and whatever suits, I think suits that particular outline of a man, I put it in and then I find something else. So I suppose it's just listening to whatever I listen to.
Yeah. I think it's so important because we all need a visionary or an artist or someone who can help explain that person coming to terms with who they are, so that we, particularly as men, can take the inward look. Because when you ask a lot of men, what's down there? Have you gone inward? It's like, I don't know. Nothing inside.
The opposites for me. There's lots in there that's still coming out, but mainly in drawings these days.
Right.
Yeah.
So it really is the hero's journey, I think, to undertake that continual journey of self-discovery. The inner world, I think, is almost as magnificent and great as the outer.
It can be quite horrifying as well. And I don't go into the horrifying much now, but I used to. It can get quite scary, even doing the visual of it. Yeah.
What influence has ecology, the environment, the natural environment had on your artwork?
When I was in Adelaide, this is way back in the early 70s, I used white as a colour, and it was to do with the Adelaide glare. That was a big thing, you know. You're very aware of it in Adelaide. So, what of the works were using white as colour. And now in my drawings, at the moment I'm using white as the colour, but it's because I live in a brand new apartment, modern apartment on the 3rd floor, and the walls are white, so the whole space is white, grey carpet. Outside, I'm on the 3rd floor, so I get 3rd floor up, all sky, and so, but I think it's more the living area that I'm in that's that white. So that's, I've yet to use the greys and the blues and the landscape outside the window, which is fabulous. But I've never been a landscape painter, and all my work's from my inner being. And so that's the two opposites of using white. When I was in both Croydon, we had a half-acre block, and it was chock-a-block full of flowers and apple trees and pear trees and native trees, huge native trees. And we did a lot of planting of natives there as well. So when it was about 1984, I started to pick the flowers, the native flowers, and bringing them into the studio and drawing them and working on repeat patterns. And I used those repeat patterns in the paintings, and I'm still using them. I've got a pile of repeat patterns and non-repeat patterns.
When you say repeat patterns, what does that mean exactly?
All bang, bang, bang. When all opposite, bang, opposite, bang, opposite. So that's what I call repeat pattern, and it formalises things. I was very much into exploring very formal structures, a bit like Adelaide Street pattern, which is north-south, east, bang, 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 bang. So I was playing around with that sort of idea. And then I started to break the boundaries, which I used to do when I was doing abstract art. I basically had a sweep of a circle, but somehow or other I'd break through it. So I was very interested in breaking boundaries. So that was the first sort of into being transgressive. So then...
Was it difficult to break, when you started breaking boundaries in your art, and perhaps in your life? Or did it come naturally to you?
It became part of doing the abstract works.
Right.
Because of the way watercolours flow. And sometimes you get a lovely flow of watercolour, but you just wouldn't dare to break, so you work around it. And so from there, for many years, I used the figures, male figure with female figures, androgynous figures, and basically trying to work out where I sat in the spectrum from non-gay to fully gay.
Where you personally sat in the spectrum in terms of your sexuality?
But it varies. It varies over the years.
Yes.
And so after that, I went to China, and I've always been interested in Chinese and Japanese art. And so when I got to China, I had sort of a rough idea of what I wanted to do. I was there for two months in Beijing. I had my own studio, a big studio, and artists all around me. So, but there was in the complex of the studio, out the back, on the way to the shops, there was this huge pond with lotus flowers. And I'd used the chrysanthemum a lot previous, but when I got to China, for the transformative, I used the chrysanthemum. But when I saw the lotus, it was better because it came from the mud flower seeded back to the mud. So you've got this lovely cyclical thing that a lotus could be used to interpret the phases of life without, banging people on the head saying, "Oi, this is about."
Yeah.
No, so that opened up a whole lot of possibilities.
So the seed of the lotus flower of beauty in the muck, in the mud.
Yeah.
And the cycles
then
of
it
life.
flowers, beautiful flower, and then the seed pod is a nice shape, and then it falls back into the mud and another one comes up. And in the pond there were fishes, but they weren't koi or goldfish as we know them. So I've had images I took a whole lot of images to China with me just to fall back on. And so I've got images of koi, so that was swimming through life sort of thing, through the flowers. And so I used them a lot. And so basically there's always been a connection with the immediate landscape that's not obvious. A couple of years ago I said to my ex-partner, "I'm really a landscape artist." And she burst out laughing and said, "You're kidding yourself." But I'm an internal landscape artist. There's all sorts of flowers and birds and leaves and all that represent all sorts of things to me. If it's in a painting, it's important to be there for some reason or other. I don't know what it is usually, but it just seems to be right. The colours, sometimes they relate to the actual flowers and things, but other times they don't. So it's more my emotional response, my emotional colour response to the shape and what's going on around it.
I'm impressed with that because I noticed that the theme for this year's World Environment Day on the 5th of June is Take Time for Nature. And as you were describing the goldfish or the koi fish gliding through the water or moving through the water, there's a kind of gracefulness to it. And it's like all of the elements of nature and our ecology have a radiance and an energy and a spiritual significance if we're prepared to bring ourselves to it, as you have. It can actually speak into our soul. and maybe tell us something important that we need to hear.
Yeah. And I've read a lot about Aboriginal culture and their relationship to the land, and I greatly admire them. And I pinch a few things from them. I'm a great pincher of images, and which is fine. If I use someone else's work, I make sure I don't use it all, I'll just use a portion of it.
Yeah.
I've come to the conclusion that the sacredness of the Aboriginal views of the landscape can be applied, and I do apply that sacredness to my interpretation of the inner landscape that I know very well.
Graham, the final question is, what influence has Christianity, Christian faith, had on your work?
I was brought up, first of all, as a Methodist, then a Baptist, then St. Mark's Fitzroy High Church of England, then MCC, the Metropolitan Community Church, which is for gay people, and finally found Coburg Uniting Church. At 21, my mother told me that I had to stop teaching Sunday school because of my lifestyle, which meant that I drank brandy and dry ginger, which was a no-no so far as she was concerned, so I was heading my way to hell.
Transgressing.
So there was quite a long time, I think it was about when I was in the late 50s, early 60s, that I knew there was the structure of the church services was missing. Everything, the paintings were structured, and I could play with the structures and bringing in all sorts of influences from other cultures and symbols. And so that was well and truly established, and then all of a sudden the structure of the church was missing from me, for me.
In your mind and in your experience?
The thing inside me that was missing. And my grandfather was for a while he was a Methodist minister. Another ancestor played in church, or he was a church organist at Murray Bridge Baptist. My father was elders at Church of Christ churches. So there's a history of Christian theology that was part of the genetic inheritance from my family.
Was there ever a point where you had to claim Christian faith for yourself?
Well, I was baptised in the Baptist church a long time ago.
A believer's baptism?
Yeah. Oh yeah, fully immersed, splutter.
Yeah.
And because of all the other influences that have come in to me from all sorts of different cultures and ideas, my bedrock is Baptist upbringing. What I learned in Sunday school and listening to sermons and all this. I think the way I expressed my wonder at the world, my despair of what people do to other people, and yeah, it's hard for me to say I'm a Christian. It doesn't quite fit. But I love the church service and the hymns and that structure that keeps you stable in some ways, I suppose. And there are, I've read too many other versions of how people worship the Supreme Being. The Holy Spirit, I know that's a Christian word for what happens to me. Put a piece of paper in front of me. In the right mood, in the right image. Boom.
The Holy Spirit working through your creativity and your soul.
That's how you
create
put it,
beautiful
doesn't it? It's just me listening. Last Wednesday, I'd finished a series of 10 drawings. And Wednesday morning I thought, I don't have to worry about any drawings today. So I was sitting there listening to ABC FM, and a piece of music came on, and I was sitting there listening to a lovely male voice singing, and there was sort of Aboriginal rhythms to the music in the background, and all of a sudden I thought, I know what I'm going to do next.
And what was that thing you needed to do next?
Do drawings on the gene. So you never know when it's going to happen, why it's going to happen. But, as I said, it's the bedrock of the Baptist faith that's deep within me, and I play.
Yeah.
And I play using that. And that's the only way I can explain it. There's something that goes on up here that all of a sudden I know not what to do next. And I'm unbearable.
Yeah.
If I don't know, ring up a friend, I haven't done a drawing yet. And one of them said, for heaven's sake, Graham, you know you're going to do more work. Shut up, I don't want to know. So, I've been blessed with a very prolific output. And my greatest fear is because I'm getting quite elderly that it will dry up. So far, it hasn't.
And I hope it never will. I hope it never will.
Oh, it's a rest.
What's that?
I said, give us a rest.
Yeah. Graham wants a rest. Please, Holy Spirit, give him a rest. I celebrate you and your work and the fact that you are, it seems you've attuned your emotions to the Holy Spirit. My understanding of theology is the Spirit is God's self-disclosure. And we're never beyond the circumference of that self-disclosure. But a lot of us don't have ears to hear it or eyes to see it. So we haven't attuned our spirits and haven't sort of cleansed our emotional current, if you like, to put it in touch with the energy of the Spirit. I hope that you will always enjoy and continue to do that, because it's been a great blessing. You and your work have been a great blessing to us, Graham. On behalf of Coburg Uniting, thank you so much for coming to speak to us today as we celebrate the Season of Spirit and World Environment Day, which was on Friday. Thank you.
It's okay. I'm enjoying it.
For